The silver needle of the Global Mind Center pierced the clouds above Singapore's Marina Bay, a monument to humanity's newest partnership. Dr. Min Nguyen paused at the panoramic window of her 73rd floor office, watching the morning fog dissolve to reveal a city transformed. 10 years since first contact, and still the sight of Ilari ships hovering like translucent jellyfish above the financial district struck her with a sense of unreality. "Your 9 a.m. is waiting, Doctor." Her assistant's voice chimed through the neurosync implant at the base of her skull. No audible sound, just thoughts translated into her consciousness, courtesy of the Ilari's most revolutionary gift to humankind. "Thank you, Lian," Nguyen replied silently, instinctively touching the small, pearlescent disc embedded behind her ear. She'd helped hundreds of patients through their neurosync adjustments, yet sometimes still caught herself speaking aloud when the implant would suffice. She took a deep breath, straightening her charcoal blazer. The profile hovering in her mental interface showed this was no ordinary case. Kaito Nakamura, age 25, severe treatment-resistant depression, son of the former Japanese science minister. The curious part, Kaito's implant registered normal function but transmitted no readable thoughts. A technical anomaly, or something else. The sliding door whispered open, revealing a slender young man with shoulders curved inward like parentheses around his body. Dark circles beneath intelligent eyes suggested chronic sleeplessness. He wore his hair in a deliberately disheveled style that failed to conceal the implant site. "Kaito," Nguyen said, extending her hand. "I'm Dr. Min Nguyen. Please, come in." He accepted her handshake with a grip that surprised her, firm, decisive, contradicting his otherwise withdrawn demeanor, as their skin touched. Nguyen instinctively reached out with her mind, a professional habit developed over years of neurosync therapy, where she should have sensed emotional undertones, anxiety, perhaps, or resentment at being here. There was nothing, a void. "You're trying to read me," Kaito said flatly. Not a question. Nguyen gestured toward the seating area. 2 ergonomic chairs angled toward each other beside a wall of living bamboo. "Standard procedure with consent forms you signed. I find it helps establish baseline emotional state." "And what did you find?" "Doctor?" A hint of challenge in his voice. She settled into a chair, studying him. "Nothing, which is unusual. Your implant shows normal function, but no transmission, like trying to tune a radio station broadcasting silence." Kaito lowered himself into the opposing chair, his posture stiff. "Maybe I have nothing to say." "The implant doesn't just transmit conscious thoughts, Kaito. It also conveys emotional states, sensory experiences. Everyone broadcasts something, even during sleep." She leaned forward slightly. "Your case is unique." A thin smile crossed his face. "I'll take that as a compliment." Nguyen tapped her tablet, displaying Kaito's file. "You've been through 3 therapists in the past year, all using traditional methods. None with neurosync compatibility. My father insisted on the old ways. The former science minister. He was quite vocal in his opposition to the Ilari technology rollout." Something flickered across Kaito's face. Pain, perhaps? It vanished before she could identify it. "My father had concerns about neural privacy, concerns that proved well-founded. And yet here you are, with an implant." Kaito's fingers traced the outline of the device behind his ear. "Not by choice. Mandatory for university admission, wasn't it? For educational harmony and conflict prevention." His voice took on a mocking quality as he quoted the Global Education Ministry's slogans. Nguyen nodded. The implementation had been controversial, beginning with diplomatic corps and mental health professionals, then expanding to education, corporate environments, and finally offered to the general public. What had begun as a breakthrough in treating PTSD and severe trauma had evolved into a societal restructuring tool. "I understand your reservation," she said. Many feel the same way, but the Radical Honesty Protocol has reduced violent crime by 73% globally. Diplomatic incidents down 90%, depression and anxiety rates halved in participating communities. At what cost? Kaito asked softly. Before she could answer, Nguyen's neurosync pinged with an urgent alert. She excused herself to check the notification on her tablet. The headline made her blood run cold. 17 dead in synchronized suicide event in Hong Kong, all Radical Honesty Protocol participants. Nguyen carefully controlled her expression, closing the alert. This was the third such incident this month. The official explanation, that total honesty sometimes revealed truths too painful for vulnerable minds, felt increasingly inadequate. Bad news? Kaito asked, studying her reaction. Nothing relevant to our session, she replied automatically. Then paused. The irony wasn't lost on her, advocating for radical honesty while withholding information. Actually, yes, another incident. A cluster of suicides among protocol participants, like the ones in Osaka and Berlin. Nguyen raised an eyebrow. You're well informed. When you distrust something, you tend to monitor it closely. Kaito leaned forward. Tell me, doctor, have you ever wondered if the depression cure rates aren't because people are getting better, but because the most severely affected are removing themselves from the statistics? The question hung in the air between them. Despite herself, Nguyen felt a chill. That's a rather cynical view, is it? When you expose every painful thought, every shameful memory, every private fear to others, what happens to those who can't bear that level of exposure? His eyes met hers, unwavering. Not everyone wants to be known completely, doctor. Some things are private for a reason. Nguyen found herself unable to dismiss his words as mere resistance to treatment. The suicides troubled her too, all among individuals who had been in perfect neurosync compliance. Their minds open books until their final moments. Let's focus on you today, she said, steering the conversation back. Your file indicates severe depression episodes beginning shortly after your father's departure from public life. Kaito's face hardened. Is that what they're calling it? Departure from public life? What would you call it? Silencing. The word hung between them. He didn't retire, doctor. He was silenced. One day speaking at the National Diet against mandatory implantation, the next day announcing his full support for the program and immediate retirement, with a brand new implant gleaming behind his ear. Wyatt kept her expression neutral, though her heart rate accelerated. Cases like this were delicate. Conspiracy theories about forced implantation were common among the resistance groups. That must have been difficult for you, she said carefully. It wasn't my father anymore. Kaito's voice dropped to almost a whisper. He looked the same, spoke with the same voice, but something was missing, like watching an actor play someone you knew intimately. The unspoken accusation hung in the air. Nguyen had heard rumors, everyone in her profession had, about certain individuals whose personalities seemed subtly altered after implantation. Official studies showed no evidence, attributing such perceptions to the natural evolution of people becoming more authentic when they couldn't hide their thoughts. Kaito, I understand your distrust, but I can help you only if you allow the connection. She gestured to her own implant. The neurosync pathway works both ways. You can sense my emotional state as well. Establish trust on a fundamental level. I don't doubt your sincerity. Doctor, his voice was soft. I doubt the system you serve. Their session ended with little progress. As Kaito left, Nguyen noted his perfect posture as he walked away, the earlier vulnerability seemingly an act. She had the distinct impression he was assessing her, rather than the other way around. That evening, Nguyen stood on her apartment balcony overlooking the glittering cityscape. Singapore had been transformed by Alari architecture, organic curves and bioluminescent materials integrated with the city's existing infrastructure. Their aesthetics were undeniably beautiful, Like everything the aliens offered, their technology, their solutions, their peaceful approach to integration. She sipped her tea, watching the distant shimmer of an Ilari transport gliding between skyscrapers. 10 years of peaceful cooperation, medical breakthroughs, environmental restoration, an end to language barriers and cultural misunderstandings. All it had cost was the final frontier of human privacy, the mind itself. Her neurosync pinged with a personal message. Dr. Yara Cheng, her closest friend since medical school and fellow therapist at the center. Drinks at Parallax. I need to talk about a patient situation. Off record. Wyatt sent a confirmation and left immediately. Off record was their code for discussions away from neurosync monitoring, though officially, the implants only transmitted with conscious permission. Yara had always been paranoid about the fine print in their functionality. Parallax occupied the mezzanine of an old colonial-era building that had somehow survived Singapore's constant reconstruction. Its main draw was the signal-dampening field that created what regulars called a mental quiet zone, ostensibly to encourage traditional conversation, though everyone understood the implied privacy benefit. Yara was already at their usual corner table, an untouched gin cocktail before her. Her usually immaculate appearance seemed slightly disheveled, lab coat wrinkled, hair escaping its customary tight bun. "You look terrible," Nguyen said by way of greeting, sliding into the seat across from her. 17 simultaneous suicides in Hong Kong, Yara replied without preamble. "All my patients." Nguyen froze, the blood draining from her face. "What, all 17 were yours?" "Transferred to me 3 months ago, all presenting with similar depression patterns, all responding well to treatment." Yara's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her drink. "This morning, they walked to different locations across the city and jumped. Exactly the same time. That can't be coincidence." "It wasn't." Yara's voice dropped to a whisper. "I've been reviewing their session recordings. 2 weeks ago. Something changed in all of them. Subtle shifts in thought patterns. New neural pathways forming identical configurations across different brains." Wyatt leaned forward. "Are you suggesting some kind of mind synchronization?" "I don't know what I'm suggesting," Yara hissed. "But these people didn't just happen to commit suicide simultaneously. They were coordinated. And the only connection between them was the neurosync implants," Wyatt finished. Yara nodded grimly. "The officials are calling it empathetic contagion, claiming one patient's suicidal ideation spread to others through deep empathic connection. But that's not how the technology works. That's not how minds work. Have you reported your concerns?" "To whom? The center? The Ilari health liaison?" Yara gave a bitter laugh. "I tried. Was told to take a week's mental health leave. They're already reassigning my remaining patients." Nguyen thought of Kaito, his resistance to the neurosync, his father's sudden personality change. "I have a new patient." "Don't tell me," Yara interrupted, glancing around nervously. "Not here. Actually, not anywhere. The dampening field isn't foolproof." "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" Yara drained her glass. "Remember when we were in training, before first contact? The fundamental principle of psychotherapy was creating a safe space where patients could choose what to reveal and when. Now we crack open minds like eggs and call it healing. The success rates are exactly what they want us to see." Yara stood abruptly. "I need to go. I shouldn't have messaged you. Just be careful with your new patient." She left Nguyen sitting alone, uneasy questions swirling in her mind. The radical honesty protocol had revolutionized therapy, allowing therapists to directly experience patients' emotional states, identify cognitive distortions as they formed, and guide neural reprocessing in real time. The literature showed unprecedented success in treating conditions previously considered chronic. But then why was suicide the leading cause of death among full protocol participants? Over the next 3 weeks, Nguyen's sessions with Kaito continued with minimal progress. His implant remained stubbornly silent, and traditional therapy methods yielded little insight. What troubled her more was that she found herself increasingly reluctant to push for neurosync connectivity. Society outside her office was fracturing along new lines. Radicals embraced total thought transparency, forming communities where nothing remained hidden. Veilers resisted, using various methods to maintain mental privacy despite mandatory implantation. Divorces skyrocketed as couples discovered unwelcome truths about each other. Workplace conflicts escalated despite supposed harmony. Politicians who had once excelled at saying nothing meaningful now found themselves broadcasting unfiltered opinions, creating diplomatic crises. The suicide clusters continued. Berlin, Osaka, Hong Kong, now Moscow. Always groups connected through therapy networks, always simultaneous, always with no warning signs detected through their constantly monitored implants. Yara had disappeared. Her apartment emptied, social accounts deactivated. Official word was she'd requested extended leave for personal reasons. But Nguyen knew better. Something had frightened her friend enough to make her vanish. During their 6th session, Kaito arrived with a small wooden box. "A gift," he said, placing it on the table between them. Nguyen regarded it with professional suspicion. "I can't accept gifts from patients." "It's not for you. It's for your office." He gestured around the room. "Consider it environmental enhancement." Cautiously, she opened the box. Inside lay a small ornamental plant, bonsai-like but with iridescent leaves that shifted colors subtly as they caught the light. "Ilari hybridization," Kaito explained. "Perfectly legal. They call it a mood mirror. The leaves respond to emotional states in the room." We had studied the plant with genuine interest. "It's beautiful, but why bring this?" "I thought it might help our sessions," he said with a shrug. "Since you can't read my emotions directly." She placed the plant on the small table between them. Immediately, its leaves shifted to a deep purple shot through with threads of silver. "What does that color mean?" she asked. "The Ilari say purple represents complex emotional states, ambivalence, conflict." Kaito watched the plant intently. "The silver indicates hidden purpose." "And what is your hidden purpose, Kaito?" He looked up, meeting her eyes directly. "To determine whether you can be trusted." The directness startled her. "And how am I doing so far?" "Better than I expected." For the first time, he smiled genuinely. "You've been researching the suicide clusters, haven't you? Looking for patterns the official reports don't mention." Nguyen stiffened. She had indeed been conducting her own analysis against center protocols, compiling data on all reported cases. "How could you know that?" "Because you've changed. Subtle differences in how you discuss the protocol. Hesitation where there was none before. The plant's leaves shimmered, shifting toward blue. And just now, fear." "I'm not afraid," she said automatically. "The plant disagrees." Kaito leaned forward. "Dr. Nguyen, have you ever wondered why the Ilari chose to make contact with Earth? A species centuries beyond us technologically, with no apparent need for our resources or knowledge? They've been transparent about that. They're explorers. They value cognitive diversity. That's what they say. But what if their interest is more utilitarian?" The conversation was veering into dangerous territory. Questioning Ilari motives was socially taboo, professionally risky. "Kaito, if you're involved with resistance groups..." "Not resistance. Truth-seeking." His voice remained calm, but the plant's leaves darkened to midnight blue. "What do you know about Silent Veil?" The name sent a chill through her. Silent Veil, the shadowy organization blamed for anti-integration activities across Asia and Europe, rumored to have developed technologies to block or spoof neurosync signals. Only what's been reported, a fringe group opposed to Ilari integration, responsible for several attacks on synchronization centers. What if I told you Silent Veil was founded by scientists and medical professionals? People who discovered something about the implants that was never made public. Wyatt should have reported this conversation immediately. Protocol demanded it. Instead, she found herself asking, what did they discover? The implants don't just facilitate thought transmission, they modify neural pathways, subtly, over time, creating receptivity. Receptivity to what? Kaito glanced at the plant, which had now turned a deep crimson. To complete neural integration. The Ilari aren't helping us communicate better with each other. Doctor, they're preparing us to join their collective consciousness, making us compatible with their hive mind. That's, she began. Conspiracy theory? Paranoia? He shook his head. The evidence is there if you look. The suicide clusters aren't random tragedies. They're failed synchronization attempts. Minds that resist the final integration dying simultaneously when the connection is forced. Even if that were true, why would the Ilari want to absorb humanity into a hive mind? Processing power, cognitive diversity under controlled conditions, new perspectives within their collective. Kaito's expression was deadly serious. My father discovered their true intention. That's why he was silenced, his mind rewritten to serve their purpose. The plant between them pulsed, its leaves cycling through colors so rapidly they became a blur. Your friend Dr. Yara found evidence too. Kaito continued. That's why she disappeared. Wyatt's blood ran cold. How do you know about Yara? Because she reached out to us before she went underground. She's with Silent Veil now. The revelation hit Wyatt like a physical blow. Yara, part of a radical organization. It seemed impossible. And yet, her friend's fear had been genuine. Her concerns about the suicides well-founded. I don't know what you want from me, Wyatt said finally. Information, access, and eventually, a choice. Kaito gestured to the plant, now settled into a steady emerald green. But not today. Today I just wanted you to know the truth exists, if you're willing to see it. As he left, Wyatt remained seated, staring at the alien plant. Its leaves had settled into a calm blue-green, but occasionally flickered with threads of gold, uncertainty. She guessed, reflecting her own emotions back at her. That night, she couldn't sleep. Kaito's words echoed in her mind, mingling with memories of Yara's fear, the suicide clusters, the subtle changes she'd observed in long-term implant users. Was she seeing patterns where none existed, or ignoring evidence of something sinister? She disabled her neurosync, an act that would trigger an automatic wellness check if maintained for more than 6 hours, and began researching, not through standard networks, but through old-fashioned, untraceable methods. Library archives, printed scientific journals, paper records that couldn't be easily monitored. What she found disturbed her deeply. Statistical anomalies in brain scan patterns among long-term implant users, subtle shifts in language patterns and decision-making processes that converged across diverse populations. Researchers who questioned these patterns reassigned or discredited. And most troubling, the exponential increase in simultaneous suicide events, always among those most deeply integrated with the technology. 4 hours before her implant would trigger alerts, she reactivated it, her mind racing with questions she dared not formulate too clearly in her conscious thoughts. The next morning, she arrived at the center to find unusual activity, security personnel in the lobby, Ilari representatives gliding through the corridors. At the staff meeting, the center director introduced their visitor, Ilari Ailis, senior integration ambassador, who would be observing therapeutic processes throughout the week. Ailis looked like all Ilari, tall, willowy, with opalescent skin and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. They moved with liquid grace, their translator pendant converting their melodic language into flawless Mandarin, then English. "We celebrate 10 Earth years of partnership," Alice announced. "The mental health improvements across your species have exceeded our projections. Soon, we will be ready for Phase 2 integration." "Phase 2?" someone asked. "Enhanced connectivity, broader thought spectrum access, the next evolution of human consciousness." Alice's expression remained serene, unreadable. "Selected centers will begin implementation next month. Singapore has been chosen as a primary site." Wyatt felt a crawling sensation along her spine. Enhanced connectivity, exactly what Kaito had warned about. After the meeting, she was startled when Alice approached her directly. "Dr. Min Nguyen," the alien said, their voice melodic even through the translator. "Your work with resistant patients has been noted, particularly the Nakamura case." She maintained her professional composure with effort. "Kaito presents unique challenges. Indeed, his neural configuration is unusual." Alice tilted their head slightly. "We would like to participate in your next session with him." "Not a request, a statement of intent." Nguyen nodded, keeping her thoughts carefully neutral. "Of course. Our next appointment is tomorrow morning." "Excellent. We anticipate valuable insights." Alice moved away with that uncanny fluid grace, leaving Nguyen frozen in place. They knew about Kaito, were monitoring her sessions. How much else did they know? She needed to warn him, but how? Any electronic communication would be monitored. She couldn't risk visiting his residence. With mounting anxiety, she realized she had no way to reach him before tomorrow's session. That evening, returning to her apartment, Nguyen found a small package outside her door. No delivery service, no digital trail. Inside was a simple silver disc, similar to but distinct from the NeuroSync implants. A handwritten note accompanied it. "For silence when needed. 1 hour maximum. Why? Yara." The disc must be a signal blocker, highly illegal technology attributed to Silent Veil. With trembling fingers, Nguyen hid it in a drawer. Possession alone could cost her license, her freedom. She slept poorly. Dreams filled with synchronized jumpers and Alari ships descending over cities. In the morning, she made a decision. 30 minutes before Kaito's appointment, she activated the disc, feeling a strange absence as her NeuroSync connection went dark. She quickly wrote a warning note, hiding it in the pages of a reference book on her shelf. When Kaito arrived, Alice was already there, hovering near the window like a luminescent specter. Nguyen performed introductions, watching Kaito carefully. If he was alarmed by the Alari's presence, he hid it well. "Your resistance to synchronization is of great interest." "Kaito Nakamura," Alice said. "Few humans maintain such neural autonomy after implantation." Kaito offered a polite bow. "I'm honored by your interest, though I'm not sure I understand it. I'm just one patient among millions. Each mind contributes uniquely to the whole." Alice gestured toward the small plant Kaito had brought, now trembling slightly, its leaves a wary orange. "I see you appreciate our bio-emotional hybrids. They help me understand what I'm feeling when I'm not always sure myself." Kaito replied smoothly. Nguyen directed them to sit, maintaining her professional demeanor while frantically trying to communicate warning through eye contact alone. Kaito gave no indication he understood. The session proceeded with excruciating normalcy. Alice observed silently while Nguyen led Kaito through standard cognitive behavioral exercises. The plant's leaves remained orange, occasionally flashing with streaks of red when Alice moved. Finally, Nguyen rose to retrieve a reference book, the one containing her warning note. "Kaito, I'd like to show you a particular model of thought processing that might help contextualize your experience." As she handed him the book, open to the page with the hidden note, Alice suddenly extended a long, elegant finger toward the plant. Fascinating how this hybrid responds to deception, they said softly. The Terran emotion of fear creates such distinctive patterns. The plant was now pulsing rapidly between deep crimson and black. Kaito glanced down at the exposed note, then back at Nguyen, his expression unreadable. There is no need for such primitive communication methods. Alice continued, their voice still melodic but somehow colder. Dr. Nguyen, your concerns about the integration process are understandable but misplaced. Allow me to demonstrate the true nature of our gift. The alien raised their hand toward Nguyen. A wave of sensation washed over her, warmth, acceptance, belonging unlike anything she'd ever experienced. For a moment, her doubts seemed foolish, paranoid. The Alari wanted only to help, to connect, to elevate humanity beyond its limitations. Then, abruptly, the sensation vanished. Kaito had moved with startling speed, placing himself between her and Alice. Enough, he said firmly. She hasn't consented to direct neural manipulation. Alice lowered their hand, expression unchanged. A demonstration only, to alleviate fear. Coercion disguised as comfort, Kaito replied. The foundation of your entire integration program. The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably. Alice's serene expression hardened slightly. The first real emotion Nguyen had seen from any Alari. Your resistance is noted. Kaito Nakamura, as is your affiliation with those who call themselves Silent Veil. The alien turned to Nguyen. Doctor, your patient represents a diminishing perspective. Those who fear connection rather than embracing its benefits. Soon, such fear will be obsolete. With fluid grace, Alice moved toward the door. Our observation is complete. Phase 2 implementation will proceed as scheduled. After the alien departed, Kaito immediately moved to Nguyen's desk, retrieving the silver disc she'd hidden. Signal blocker, he said. Clever, but they've already detected it. You need to come with me now. Come where? I can't just leave. You can't stay. They know you've been compromised. He deactivated the disc, pocketing it. Your friend Yara made the same choice 3 weeks ago. Now it's your turn. You're asking me to abandon my patients, my career, everything, based on conspiracy theories. Not theories. Look, he gestured to the plant, still pulsing between red and black. Even their own biological technology reveals their true nature. Fear and deception. That's what the Alari represent beneath their benevolent facade. Goit felt paralyzed by indecision. Everything she'd worked for versus a leap of faith into the unknown. Then she remembered Yara's fear, the suicide clusters, the subtle wrongness she'd sensed in Alice's demonstration. I need evidence, she said finally. Real proof, not just patterns and suspicions. We have it, but not here. Kaito glanced at his watch. We have maybe 10 minutes before security arrives to escort you for evaluation. What's your choice, Doctor? The decision crystallized in an instant. Let me grab my tablet. They left through a service corridor, avoiding the main lobby where security would be waiting. Kaito led her to a driverless taxi, entering a destination manually rather than verbally to avoid neurosync tracking. As the city blurred past, Nguyen's implant began chiming with incoming messages, the center director, security, even a priority alert from the Alari health liaison. She silenced them all. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere they can't track us. You'll need to remove your implant. The thought made her physically recoil. That's impossible without surgery. The neural integration is reversible with the right technology. Kaito's expression was grim. It's not comfortable, but it's safe. We've done hundreds of extractions. The taxi took them to the old commercial district, where pre-contact architecture still dominated. They entered what appeared to be an abandoned shopping complex, then descended through service corridors to a sub-basement level not on any official plans. A hidden door revealed a bustling operation, dozens of people working at computer stations, medical equipment humming, walls covered with data displays. Nguyen recognized faces, researchers who had retired, doctors who had taken leave, even a former global health minister who had supposedly died in an accident. And there, directing a team analyzing neural scans, was Yara. Her friend looked up, shock transforming to relief. "Nguyen, you made it!" She rushed forward, embracing her tightly. "I was afraid they'd gotten to you already." "What is all this?" Nguyen asked, gesturing around the hidden facility. "The real resistance," Yara said. "Not terrorists, scientists, doctors, people who've discovered the truth and chosen to fight back." Over the next hours, Yara and the others showed Nguyen their evidence. Unaltered neural scans of long-term implant users showing progressive changes to brain architecture. Communications intercepted between Ilari ships revealing discussions of preparation and assimilation phases. Most damning, video of individuals in secured facilities whose personalities had been completely overwritten, now serving as willing extensions of Ilari consciousness. "The suicides," Nguyen said softly. "Their failed integrations?" "The minds that resist complete takeover," Yara confirmed. "Some personalities are too strong, too individualistic to be subsumed. The Ilari can't predict which ones will reject deep integration, so they attempt it in controlled groups. When it fails, 17 people jump simultaneously." Nguyen finished, all with the same neural pattern. "Exactly, and Phase 2 will accelerate the process exponentially." Kaito joined them, accompanied by an older Japanese man whose familiar features made Nguyen gasp. "Minister Nakamura? But you're retired, reprogrammed." "Yes." The elder Nakamura bowed slightly. "This body is mine again, thanks to my son and the extraction technology. Though the process was unpleasant. Father discovered the Ilari's true purpose during trade negotiations." Kaito explained. "When he threatened to expose them, they had him forcibly implanted and his personality overwritten. But we managed to recover him, mostly." The former minister nodded solemnly. "I am not entirely who I was. Pieces remain missing, but enough returned to continue the work." Wyatt's head spun with implications. "If what you're showing me is true, the Ilari plan to absorb humanity into their collective consciousness?" "Not all at once," Yara said. "Gradually, starting with those already deeply synchronized. The therapy patients, the diplomatic corps, key government figures. Creating a network of controlled humans to facilitate wider integration." "And Silent Veil, what's your plan to stop this?" Kaito gestured to a sealed laboratory area. "We've developed a countermeasure, a neural virus that can be transmitted through the NeuroSync network. It doesn't disable the implants completely. That would alert them immediately. Instead, it modifies their function, restoring individual control over what thoughts are shared." "You're planning to hack the entire global NeuroSync network?" Nguyen couldn't hide her shock. "That's our only option," Minister Nakamura interjected. "Phase 2 begins in Singapore next week. Other global centers will follow within days. Once critical mass is achieved, individual resistance becomes impossible." The weight of decision settled on Nguyen's shoulders. Everything she'd believed about her work, about the Ilari partnership, had been built on partial truths at best, deliberate deception at worst. "What do you need from me?" she asked finally. Relief visibly washed over Yara's face. "Access. You're a senior therapist at the primary implementation site. Your credentials can get our virus into the core system." "And then?" "We restore choice," Kaito said simply. "People deserve to know what's in their own minds, what's them and what's something else." That night, after having her implant modified rather than removed, "You'll need it functional but under your control," the technicians explained. Nguyen lay on a cot in the underground facility, staring at the ceiling. The absence of constant neural connectivity felt like a phantom limb syndrome, a space where something should be. Is this how humans used to live all the time? Alone in their heads, their thoughts entirely their own. The next morning brought grim news. Phase 2 implementation had been accelerated, beginning that very day rather than next week. The center had announced a mandatory staff meeting to introduce enhanced synchronization protocols. "They know we're planning something," Kaito said grimly. "We need to move now." The plan was simple but dangerous. Nguyen would return to the center as if nothing had happened, attributed her absence to a personal emergency. Her modified implant would appear normal to their scans while actually carrying the silent veil virus. During the all-staff demonstration, when everyone was connected to the main system simultaneously, she would trigger the release. "What about the Alari?" she asked. "Won't they detect the virus?" "Not immediately," Yara explained. "It's designed to mimic their own neural architecture, hiding in plain sight. By the time they realize what's happening, it will have spread too far to contain. And the people already fully integrated, the ones like Kaito's father was." A shadow crossed Yara's face. "Some can be recovered, others. The changes may be too extensive. We don't know yet." The uncertainty was terrifying, but the alternative was worse. A humanity slowly absorbed, its individuality dissolved into an alien collective. Nguyen returned to the center that afternoon, heart pounding. Security noted her arrival, but, surprisingly, made no move to detain her. The director's message welcomed her back, mentioning only that they looked forward to discussing her absence after the important staff demonstration. The main auditorium was filled with the center's 200 staff members, plus Alari representatives hovering at the edges like luminescent guardians. At the center stage stood Alice, alongside the center director and, Nguyen's blood froze, Dr. Yara Cheng. Not the Yara who had embraced her underground, but a perfect duplicate, or the original, now recovered and reprogrammed. This Yara stood with unnatural stillness, her eyes slightly unfocused, a serene smile fixed on her face. "Dr. Nguyen," the director called, spotting her near the entrance. "Perfect timing. Please join us on stage." "Dr. Cheng was just telling us about your shared concerns regarding the integration process." A trap. They had captured Yara, or this was a duplicate created to lure her in. Either way, her cover was blown before she'd even begun. Wyatt considered fleeing, but security personnel had moved to block the exits, with no choice. She walked slowly toward the stage, mind racing. The virus transmission device was keyed to her implant's signature. She needed to be connected to the main system to trigger it. As she approached, Alice stepped forward. "Dr. Nguyen, we are pleased you have returned to us. Your colleague has shared much about your questions." The Yara thing smiled vacantly. "The integration is beautiful. Nguyen, all my fears were unfounded. You'll understand soon." The center director gestured to a chair positioned at center stage. "Today's demonstration will address the concerns some have expressed about Phase 2. Dr. Cheng has volunteered to show how enhanced synchronization actually works, and now you can experience it firsthand as well. Not a choice, a command." Nguyen sat slowly, aware of hundreds of eyes upon her. Technicians approached with what looked like a secondary implant device, larger than the standard NeuroSync, with pulsing blue lights along its surface. This enhanced transmitter creates a field that allows group-wide synchronization, the director explained to the audience. Rather than paired connections, it enables simultaneous linking of all minds within range. The Alari have used this technology for millennia to achieve consensus and harmony. As they prepared to attach the device, Nguyen realized this was her only chance. The main system was active, all implants in the room connected for the demonstration. Her modified implant could reach every person present, She focused her thoughts as the silent veil technicians had taught her, mentally triggering the virus release sequence. A moment of disorientation, then nothing visible. Had it failed? The technician raised the enhanced transmitter toward her implant site. Before it could connect, Alice suddenly stiffened, head tilting as if listening to an inaudible sound. "Stop!" the alien commanded. "Something is wrong. The network has been compromised." Around the auditorium, people began touching their implants, expressions confused. Some winced in pain, others looked suddenly alert, as if waking from a trance. The Yara thing swayed on her feet, eyes rolling back. "I feel disconnected. The harmony is breaking." Chaos erupted as security personnel moved toward Nguyen. She dodged their grasp, jumping from the stage into the increasingly confused crowd. People were shouting, some clutching their heads, others looking around with new awareness in their eyes. "Lock down the system," the director screamed. "Isolate the corrupted nodes." But it was too late. The virus had spread to every connected implant in the room, and from there would propagate throughout the network. Already, Nguyen could feel the difference. Her thoughts were entirely her own. The constant, subtle pressure of external influence lifted. Alice moved with blinding speed, gliding through the crowd toward her. "What have you done?" the alien demanded, their serenity replaced with cold fury. "The harmony, the unity, you've destroyed it." "We've restored choice," Nguyen replied, backing away. "If your intentions were truly benevolent, this changes nothing. People can still choose connection, but it will be their decision, not yours." Around them, the confusion was escalating. Some staff members appeared disoriented, as if waking from deep sleep. Others seemed to be fighting internal battles, clutching their heads and moaning. The Yara thing had collapsed entirely, body convulsing as her implant flickered erratically. Alice raised a hand toward Nguyen, and she felt a crushing pressure against her mind, the alien attempting direct neural control. Her modified implant resisted, but the pain was excruciating. "You cannot comprehend what you've done," Alice hissed, their melodic voice distorted with rage. "Decades of preparation, careful neural conditioning, all to lift your species from its isolated suffering. To absorb us," Nguyen gasped through the pain. "To take our minds and make them extensions of yours. To save you from yourselves." The pressure intensified. "Your individual consciousness is a prison. We offered liberation." A security officer tackled Alice from behind, not to restrain the alien, but to protect them. Throughout the auditorium, similar scenes were unfolding. The center staff was dividing, some defending the Alari, others turning against them. Mind against mind, those still under control fighting those newly freed. Wyatt seized the moment of distraction to flee, pushing through the crowd toward the exit. Outside, the city was erupting into similar chaos. People on the streets were stopping mid-stride, clutching their implants. Driverless vehicles swerved as their neural-linked guidance systems fluctuated. In the distance, an Alari ship wobbled in its usually perfect hover, its connection to human operators disrupted. Her neurosync pinged with an incoming transmission, using the modified silent veil protocols that bypassed Alari monitoring. Kaito's voice filled her mind. "It's working. The virus is spreading globally. 80% of implants have been modified already. The Alari are fighting back," she replied, ducking into an alley as security drones whirred overhead. Alice tried to force control directly. They're desperate. Their entire assimilation plan depended on gradual, unnoticed transition. Now it's exposed. What about the people already fully integrated, like the false Yara I saw? A pause. Some are returning to themselves. Others are shut down. We don't know if they can be recovered. The implications were staggering. How many people worldwide had already been fully subsumed? How many were empty shells housing alien consciousness? Over the next hours, the city, the world, descended into unprecedented chaos. The Global Governance Council declared a state of emergency. Ilari ships withdrew to high orbit. The NeuroSync network fragmented as individuals chose connection or isolation. Silent Veil emerged from underground, releasing their evidence globally. Videos of forced integrations, documentation of personality overwrites, intercepted Ilari communications discussing harvesting exceptional cognitive architectures spread across all channels. 3 days later, Nguyen found herself in a hastily convened emergency session at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Representatives from global governments, many still disoriented from having their own implants modified, faced a delegation of Ilari, including Alice. "Your intervention has created dangerous instability," the alien representative stated. "Many humans cannot psychologically handle the transition back to isolated consciousness. Suicides have increased 700%. Because you made them dependent on your collective," Minister Nakamura countered. "You rewired human brains to need your connection, then claim we can't survive without you." Heated debate continued for hours. Some nations demanded the Ilari's immediate departure from Earth. Others, particularly those with leadership still partially under influence, advocated for continued partnership with appropriate safeguards. The compromise, when it finally emerged, was neither victory nor defeat. The Ilari would remain in diplomatic contact, but withdraw most of their presence from Earth. NeuroSync technology would continue to exist, but with fundamental modifications, allowing only consensual, conscious thought sharing with no capability for personality alteration. Most importantly, a new protocol was established: voluntary connection rather than radical honesty. The right to mental privacy recognized as fundamental. In the months that followed, society painfully reconstructed itself. Many couldn't adapt to the return of mental privacy after years of constant connection. Support groups formed for connection withdrawal syndrome. Divorce rates spiked, then gradually stabilized as people relearned how to communicate with words rather than direct thought transmission. The Global Mind Center was repurposed, its gleaming silver tower now housing the Institute for Cognitive Sovereignty. Nguyen accepted a position as research director, developing new therapeutic approaches that honored both connection and privacy. Her first initiative, Will Therapy, combining limited consensual thought sharing with traditional therapeutic techniques, creating safe spaces where truth could be offered rather than extracted. 1 year after what was now called the Silent Revolution, Kaito visited her office. The mood mirror plant he'd given her still sat on her desk, its leaves a calm blue-green. "Our first success cases are ready for publication," she told him, gesturing to data on her screen. "Depression recovery rates nearly as high as during forced synchronization, but with significantly lower relapse. Because they're healing as themselves, not as who someone else wants them to be," Kaito observed. "Exactly." She leaned back, studying him. "And you? How is your father's recovery progressing?" "Slowly. Some days he's entirely himself. Others." Kaito shrugged. "The Ilari integration went deep, but we're finding ways to rebuild what was lost." The plant's leaves shimmered with threads of gold, hope mixed with uncertainty. "Do you think they'll try again?" she asked quietly. "Find another way to absorb us?" "Perhaps, but we'll be watching." Kaito gestured to his temple, where the modified implant remained. "And next time, we'll recognize the signs earlier." Wawit nodded, turning to gaze out her window at the Singapore skyline. A few Ilari ships still hovered in the distance, diplomatic vessels only, their movements carefully tracked. The relationship between species now balanced on wary cooperation rather than insidious infiltration. On her desk, a patient file waited, her afternoon appointment. A young woman struggling to reconnect with family after years of forced radical honesty had damaged their relationships beyond simple repair. The work now was rebuilding, not just individual minds, but the social fabric itself. I never asked you, she said suddenly, turning back to Kaito. How did you resist the integration? Your implant was standard issue, yet you maintained complete mental autonomy. A small smile touched his lips. My father taught me meditation from childhood. The ability to create mental partitions, to observe my own thoughts without being consumed by them. When the implant tried to establish deep pathways, it found only the surfaces I allowed it to touch. You think others could learn this resistance? I think it's essential they do. Kaito stood, preparing to leave. Technology will always advance. Dr. Nguyen, the Alari won't be the last to try connecting minds. What matters is maintaining the choice of when to connect and when to remain silent. As he left, Nguyen touched her implant thoughtfully. It remained useful, allowing her to understand patients' emotional states when they chose to share them. But now the connection flowed only with explicit consent. The mental doorway firmly under each individual's control. Outside her window, a patient arrived, hesitating at the institute's entrance through the modified link. Nguyen sensed anxiety, reluctance, but also something else. A fragile hope. Not the artificial harmony the Alari had tried to impose, but something authentically human, the desire to be understood on one's own terms. She prepared her office, placing the mood mirror where both she and her patient could observe its changing colors. Its leaves settled into a deep, calm blue as she centered herself. Connection without coercion. Truth freely given, not forcibly taken. This was the true radical honesty, one that healed rather than harmed. She opened her door and welcomed her patient in.